Welcome to the Digital Amateur Television Experimenters Night. This is VK Station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania. Amateur radio is a worldwide hobby that has many different aspects. Digital television is just one of the many modes and do not have to be a radio amateur or need any ATV equipment to participate anywhere in the world. Also participate in the night by coming up to the Queen's Domain club rooms. Yes, right on top of the Queen's Domain in the heritage-listed Coast Wireless station. You never know, we might get you in front of the camera or behind doing one of the many roles during the night. And on a Wednesday night from 7:30 p.m. local time. We'll see you soon. This is VK. This is VK7 OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania, with our DATV Experimenters Night. And I'll just, that's a bit better. Apologies for those quick changes. This is our Working from the Shack edition number 4. It's the, I've entitled it Shack Tours Unlimited. So we've got our notable amateur standing by in his shack in Alma Street in Bellerive. But just before we get underway with Mike, I'll just remind people we've got the ability to call in on repeater 2 on 146 700. We've got the ability to call in, and we have. Oh, and on cue I get the ident, so there you go. We also have resolved the issue with DMR, so I'm able to take calls on 3807, talk group 3807, and of course we've got the YouTube streaming channel that I'll be monitoring as well. So we've got a few ways of being able to shoot some questions in and make some comments and all of that, and I encourage the comments. They can be passed on to Mike, and Mike can hopefully address them. And also thank you for the comments that are coming in from the previous ones. They fantastic. Please keep them coming. Gives us some great ideas for future nights. And also, if you are game enough to be involved with one of these nights, and are willing to participate in a shack tour and a bit of an interview online for people, please get in contact with me, VK7 Tango Whiskey, VK7TW at wia.org.au. So what I am going to do is move our presenter across to, and if I do the magic of television, I'll move our presenter across to here, and I welcome Mike Jenner VK7FB. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, Justin, and good evening, viewers and listeners. The background there is not real. That's just the way it feels.
Oh, very good, Mike. Very good indeed. Mind you, I think we're heading into a white Mount Wellington. By the way, the temperature seems to be dropping.
For those that are not familiar with Hobart, that is Mount Wellington.
Yes.
On the western shore, and on the summer side of the river, on the eastern shore.
And good.
Actually, sitting in my shack.
Good evening to Warren, who is on the chat channel, and also Scott. Thanks. I've dropped the level, and Murray VK7ZMS. They've dropped a line into the YouTube chat channel. So good evening, guys. So we might get underway with our interview with Mike. He's gone back to his normal background, which is I understand your dining room. Is that
I'm
correct?
sitting in front of that, but I'm actually in the shack, which happens to be our dining room, which is halfway between the kitchen and the lounge room, in an open plan this side of our little hacienda in Belrive.
Oh, there you go. And good evening to Richard ZBX Tricky as well. Evening, Richard. So we'll get underway. Mike, what I might do is get you to give a little bit of probably history and a little bit about yourself and how you've got to where you've got to. So I'll hand over to you to give us a bit of background.
Well, I was born at a very early age, in 1941 actually, in Norfolk, in the middle of the Second World War. And I remember the end of the war when the bombers flew over Norfolk as part of the celebrations, which has got nothing to do with amateur radio really, but there you go. Now, what did you ask? How I got into amateur radio?
Well,
I was a bit lucky. I had a bit of a background. My dad and his brother used to play with radio many years ago when they lived down on the peninsula, when they were young men fresh out from England. And so Dad was always sort of interested in Morse and stuff like that, although he'd never done anything with it at all. I was, for some reason, rather interested in electricity as well. So when I went to high school at Hobart Tech High, which is now Newtown High, in the second 2 years I did applied electricity. So I had a background in AC theory and all that sort of stuff, which was a great grounding for the later interest in radio. I also boarded at the hostel, which was right in the school ground, and just over the back fence, more or less, was Keith Johnson VK7RX, who had a big tower in his backyard. At that time, a big wooden tower with a 320-metre beam on the top of it.
Okay.
So I got really brave one day and went over and said goodnight. And we used to hear him on our crystal sets too. Of course, it was AM in those days, so he used to sort of take over our crystal sets when he was on the air. So I went and said good day to him and spoke to a gentleman that lived next to a 24-block brewery in some city in America, which I thought was pretty amazing.
Cool.
And it sort of grew from there, I guess.
So what period are we talking here, Mike?
Oh, about 18, 14 or something like that. That would have been when I first met Keith, it would have been in the early 50s.
Okay.
So I was born in 41, so 52 I would have started high school. I'd only just barely turned 12 when I started high school, so I was sort of younger than most of the people in the class as well. Okay. But yeah, so yes, it would have been 51 or 52 when I met Keith. It sort of grew from there. Once I was lucky enough to have an apprenticeship offered to me, so I walked straight into a job out of high school. Okay. And I had 7 years with a contractor in Norfolk. Okay. And during that time, my first real bit of radio stuff that I built was a tunable converter, which was if I remember rightly, it was a triode pentover or something rather. It was an X61M, which was a sort of a mixer tube or something in those days.
Oh my goodness, yeah, okay.
So that was fed into an ordinary old broadcast receiver, and I could start hearing in those days shortwave. You know, a lot of domestic radios had shortwave, but they never went below about 40 metres. Yeah. So the big thrill with the plug-in coils in the converter was that I could now get 80 metres as well. Woo-hoo! And again, of course, this was all AM in those days.
Yes.
through all of that, I sort of got interested in shortwave listening, and I used to travel down to Hobart on the bus, and for the Wireless Institute meetings.
Okay.
And it was a matter of leaving the meeting early to catch the 10 o'clock bus back to Norfolk, or staying late and catching one that was at 1:45 in the morning or something.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So
Okay.
I used to go up to Ken Milne's place, 7KA, who's now unfortunately a silent key.
Yep.
And I would sit in his shack until it was time to belt down the hill and catch the bus in Argyle Street and come home to New Norfolk.
I love it. I love it.
Ken had a beautiful shack. He was mad keen on Morse.
Yep.
And because of the connection with him and others through the WIA at that time, they were all old school. They'd all gone through where when you started your license, you were stuck on Morse, and that was it. You couldn't go on phone until you had your license for 12 months or something.
Yep.
So, and VHF, you couldn't get over your back fence, so nobody ever talked about VHF.
So Mike, where were the Wireless Institute meetings held at that stage?
In Liverpool Street, above Fletcher Jones in Liverpool Street.
Okay, yes, yeah.
And I think, until relatively recently, if not still, the HF dipole is still up above the building there. Or was
yeah, no, it was. It's not anymore.
Oh, it's gone. Oh,
it's gone. But yes, I used to look up every time I walked down Liverpool Street and thought, there's the pole that Richard Rogers told me about. So yes, very good.
So if I can share my screen now, we can perhaps continue the story. So,
yeah.
Where are we? So is that working now? Is it?
Yes, yeah, that's fantastic.
Okay, so in my young days, Dad was very keen on photography, so under the house he had a dark room where he used to do his enlarging and all that sort of stuff. It was back in the old black and white days.
Yep.
But by the time I got keen on radio, Dad had given it up, and so the dark room became my first radio shack.
Oh, very nice.
And on the left there you can see, you ignore the young bloke, I don't know who the hell he is. That would have been in about 59 or 60, I guess. The device on the left was my first attempt at sort of putting things together. The tunable converter was in behind that and all sorts of other bits and pieces. On the right is the AR7, which became my pride and joy. That I bought from Ken, 7KA, for £50, if I remember rightly. So that was my first real foray into amateur radio.
Cool.
Then I sat for the exam and passed it with flying colours, but I didn't sit the Morse. I just sat for the theory of the regs and passed that. About the end of 1960, that would have been. Bob Milne, you remember Bob, 7ZAL?
Yes.
Also now silent key. He was a long distant cousin of mine.
Okay.
And at that time he was living in Richmond, and he was mad keen on 6 metres, and he said, look, why don't you take out a Z-call and I'll lend you a transmitter. So in the meantime, because everyone was saying how good VHF was, I brought a tunable 6 metre converter that was built by Neville Campbell. He was a jeweller in Hobart, 7NC, I think it was his call sign.
Okay.
Can you see my pointer on the screen there, can you?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the 6 metre tunable converter. It had 3 tubes, and it covered the 6 metre band, and that was then fed into the AR7 on, I don't know, 7 megs or something or other.
Okay.
Or thereabouts. So I could listen on 6 metres. I had the 4-element beam on a telescopic TV mast outside the shack, and I found that you could actually hear stuff that was the other side of your back fence. So Bob lent me his transceiver, and my first contact was with and that's the QSL card from it that came back to me just recently. The first contact was with David Thorne,
Yes.
who then was 7ZAI.
Yep.
He became 7...
MR.
Crikey.
MR.
Sorry?
MR.
MR, that's right,
Yep.
yes. So that was my very first contact, which was on the 15th of December 15th of February 1961. I built the transmitter as a 7C5, which was the Lockjaw equivalent of a 6V6.
Okay.
Ran a whole 10 watts. With a modulation training out of a 522 set and all that sort of stuff.
Oh,
and it was built in behind the same panel as the converter was in the right hand side of that panel. And as you can see, it was built the same size as the AR7. So that got me on 6 meters, and I had an absolute ball. Talked to people all over the world, and with AM, the audio quality was beautiful, and you could hear birds twittering in the backyard and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And I think my DX in those days, ground wave, was with Alan Morrisby, who lived at Cremorne, 7MY, also another silent key. I've outlived most of them, I'll probably outlive myself eventually.
Yeah.
I'll get my OBE in 2 years' time.
Right.
Over bloody 80. Anyway, in those days we used to have the annual ham fest up at Campbelltown.
Oh, yes.
You could tell when it was by the makes and models of the cars there. This would have been probably 61, 62, sometime around that era.
Okay.
That was my little Simca Ronde and my portable 2-metre beam beside it, and all that sort of thing.
Good stuff.
And again, there's a whole heap of silent keys there. That looks like Dan Kelly with his back to us. 7DK, he's long gone. Teddy Beard and a whole heap of them there that have all long gone now. Just it makes me feel really bloody old. We used to go DXing on top of Mount Wellington. I think the station wagon there might be Reggie Emmett. He was 7ZAO then, and his brother was 7ZAQ.
Okay.
My logbook is full of ZAO, ZAQ, ZAO, ZAQs in the first year or two.
Fantastic.
We used to go up there and sort of work DX into lawn system and stuff like that on 2 metres. I think my best DX up there was to work Dave Thorne, who was out on Flinders Island at work one weekend.
Yeah.
And there's the original ABC TV tower on the Welly that's long since gone as well.
Yeah. Fantastic.
In later life, somewhat later, in 1964, 1969, I transferred out of, by that time I was working in the PMG, and was a shift operator down at the ABC radio station at Lauderdale.
Yep.
We transferred out of that into shipping and transport, and became a lighthouse keeper for 4 years.
Woohoo!
And that's on Tasman Island.
Okay.
The homebrew gear was incapable of being carted around like that. It was just too big and too bulky, and power supply things just made it impractical. So I had a dipole strung from the top of the lighthouse down to the back fence of our house, which is on the right there. That's Quartus 3.
Okay.
That was in 1964, that picture. No, I beg pardon, that's much more recent. That's since the top of the lighthouse changed. That one's in 1964.
Okay.
That one's more likely last year. But that was the setup that I had in Quarters number 3 on Tasman Island. So I bought the transceiver especially for the Lighthouse Service. So that was a Yaesu FT50, which was a bit strange in those days. It was a crystal locked sideband transceiver.
Yep.
With a VXO, the knob in the middle that used to sort of pull the crystal, so you could actually tune it a little bit either way.
Yep.
And then it had an external solid state VFO, which used to drift like all thing.
Yep.
It's sitting on top of a box which contained a home-built Z-Max coupler and an SWR bridge and various other bits and pieces.
I love it.
and also a home-built electronic Kia with the paddle you'll see on the right-hand side there.
Okay.
That used to work quite nicely. That was my first solid-state device. It had a transistor in it.
So if it was a Kia, you had moved and gone into Morse code.
Oh yes. Well, by this time, because I had the full core, I'd gone from being the voice of the Derwent Valley 7ZAV, which was just the next call sign on the list, because I was only going to have a Z call for a couple of weeks. I had it for 7 years and then got round to passing the Morse.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
7FB. And I think I chose FB and not MJ because it sounded good on Morse. You know, did it just sort of sounded good.
It flowed. Yeah.
Now I get called all sorts of things. You wouldn't believe the number of phonetics you can fit into FB, but never mind. And we had the old national receiver on the right there for general coverage, earwigging around, which was quite handy too.
Okay.
You'll notice the ashtray too. I gave that up in '96.
Right.
So that was the station on Tasman Island in 1964. 1969. Oh, I keep coming out with 64. That's when I got married the first time. 64. 69 that was.
Okay.
In about February 1970, we moved to Eddystone Point, the beautiful big granite tower up there. These sites, by the way, you could wind the volume control up absolutely flat out on the receiver, and there wasn't a sound there if you weren't tuned into somebody. There was no noise, no nothing, just the hiss of the what's throbbing through the filaments, you know.
Green with envy. Green with envy, Mike.
So that's Eddystone Point. There's the houses there. The one in the middle was our place.
Mike, like on Tasman Island and also here at Eddystone Point, there are 3 houses. So are there three lighthouse operators, or what?
Well, on Tasman Island and the other remoter stations like Matsaika, there were 3 families on those stations. There was a head keeper and 2 light keepers. On the shore stations and on Swan Island and at Cape Sorel on the west coast in those days, they were 2-man stations. So the left-hand house there is the head keeper's quarters. And by the way, the radio that we had there, the station radio, which operated on 2 megs, 4 megs, I can't remember now. We used that for communicating with Swan Island. We had the phone on at Eddystone, but we were the base for Swan Island. And that radio is in Barry's collection up on the domain.
Oh, okay, cool.
It looks more like a mantle radio than a transceiver. It's an old helicopter.
Now,
anyway,
Mike, I've got a question from Warren here, and it's just going back to the picture that you had on Tasman Island of your equipment. Is that a 110 volt transformer on the floor under the desk?
Yes, because the National was an American radio.
It
was 240 to 110. Yes,
there you go.
That's exactly right. Well done.
Well,
by the way, for power on the lights, the lighthouses actually ran on 110 volts DC, and we had rotary inverters to give us 240 volts AC.
Well, there you go.
So,
I love it.
Yes.
And so how was that generated, Mike? How was the DC generated?
We had a big bank of nice cells.
Yep.
With single cylinder diesel generators to charge them. So during the day we mostly ran on the batteries, and then in the evening the generator would start up and charge the batteries and give us more power to run our tellies and all that at night. So
okay.
The usual sort of run of things.
Cool. Oh my goodness.
So that was that's in the kitchen in the middle house at Eddystone. The third house, by the way, was empty. That was just when we had relief keepers come. They used to live down there in number 3.
Okay.
Originally it was a 3-man station, but by this time the light was electric and not kerosene.
Yep.
So it didn't require you didn't have to be up the tower at night like we did on Tasman. The light was always manned.
Yep.
But on these bases it was electric, and it had an alarm. So if the light failed, it would ring a bell and wake you up, and you'd go and fix it.
Okay.
So that's in the kitchen at number 2 quarters at Eddystone.
Nice moustache.
I don't know who that is either.
Yeah.
that'd be in the very early 70s.
Okay.
And I stuck a pole up out on the sand dune next to the house, and built a very hairy cubicle quad, which I think fell apart the very first time the wind blew. So it wasn't very successful, but that was it in the process of being erected.
Okay.
Again, that would have been 1971, 72, something like that.
Fantastic.
We moved back to terra firma and back to the radio station at Lauderdale and into the station house at Lauderdale, from which we had left to join the lights. And the gear was in the lounge room, so it had to be all locked up to keep it away from kids and visitors and stuff. So that was my radio shack there in the corner in the lounge room at
all locked up
at Ralph's Bay, and it opened up into that.
Oh, cool.
So at the top is the old AR7, above that is the homebrew HF transmitter, which by that time, I can't remember what the final tube in it was, but it ran about 50 watts. And it was AM, CW and double sideband.
Okay.
All homebrew.
Wasn't an 807, was
underneath
it?
that there's a blank panel which was going to be the flying spot scanner for SoScan TV, but it never got finished.
Okay.
Underneath that is the SoScan TV monitor on the left, which also never got completed. This was a signal generator for SoScan TV.
Okay.
This was in the very early days of SoScan, and I was so busy doing other things that I just never ever finished it off and got it going. This was my control panel for various things, and don't ask me what it did now, it's too long ago, but that was all homebrew stuff.
Yep.
The FT50, of course, and down here, again, the same panel that I had at Eddystone, but it had been painted and prettied up a bit, so that's the Z-Match coupler.
Fantastic.
And the antenna system was very hairy.
Oh my goodness.
There was a bit of pipe on the back fence with the 2 metre, I think it was called a skeleton slot.
Yep.
In the middle. 6 metre vertical at this end and a 2 metre vertical at the other end. And, I think we had to sort of half wave on 80 or something on HF.
Oh, there you go.
Then we moved later still, this is in the 80s, we moved down to Cremorne, and by this time I changed partners again as well. So that was the console at Cremorne, and as you can see, things have sort of grown a bit. The FT50 had long gone.
That's an FT101, isn't it?
In the meantime, my dad got his license and became 7MJ.
Okay.
Mike, what's his name? The call sign still belongs to Mike.
Yeah.
You know, Mike Groth, 7MJ.
Yeah.
I call him Dad when I talk to him. So by this time, Dad had passed away. He went in 86, so this was sometime after that. So the FT101 at the top was Dad's. To the right of that is a 6 metre transverter.
Yes.
Which I can't remember who I bought that from, but a local ham somewhere or other.
Yep.
The old computer down the left there, Commodore CB.
Yes.
Commodore
PET.
CBM 4032.
Yes.
That's 32K of memory it had, and we expanded it to 64K. It was really the last.
Woohoo!
The control panel in the middle was another one that eventually originally was a telephone switchboard, but it got completely rewired, and that controlled everything. I could pre-select whichever transmitter I wanted to go, or all the transmitters, and I could set it up so that whatever transmitter you turned on, all the receivers muted, or you could leave any of the receivers on, and all that sort of stuff. It was pretty flash.
Very impressive.
nothing better to do when we worked at the radio station. We used to get paid twice what we were worth for doing half what we were capable of. So a lot of stuff.
And Mike, Richard Howlett just commented, I'm always impressed. I was impressed the first time I saw Mike's shack with the homemade console. So there you go. And we're joined by Hayden, VK7HH, so evening Hayden.
I've always had to think about consoles. I don't know why. I just like things to be neat and tidy. You know?
Yeah. And they hide a multitude of sins. Yeah.
That was the antenna farm at Cremorne. So at the top you can see there's a 2 metre and 70 centimetre verticals. I don't think they are there, but later on I tilted them up at about 15 degrees because I got into working satellites.
Okay.
And I used to do a lot with the low level rusky satellites that were kicking around. Can't remember what they were called in those days.
Yeah, the RSs. Yeah.
Yeah, they were a lot of fun to play with. But I also used to get onto the more salubrious ones, and I really upset Ian Filby, who had a huge array and circular polarisation and God only knows what else. And he never managed to work England, and I did once when the satellite was in just at the right place at the right time.
There you go.
So it was sort of, what was it, 70 cents up, 2 metres down or something.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, that was the tower there with the 4 and 6 metre beam underneath.
Yep.
And the disc going there for the scanner.
Yep.
The vertical, upside down vertical there was for 2 metre simplex around the town. One of the guy wires was also a dipole for 10 metres, and as you can see going out of the picture there to the left is a multi-dipole for 80, 40, 20, 15 and 10.
Love it.
So that was the
very impressive, Mike.
Sorry?
Very impressive.
Yeah, well that would have been about 19... I've got to get this right now. 1989, probably, because about then the radio station at Lauderdale went unattended.
Yep.
I was the last one there. We'd had 4 of us on shift there up until then. When it went automatic, I was the last one there for about the last 6 or 8 months, just in case something went bung.
Yep.
It was me that actually turned out the lights because 1989, and there's never been man since then.
Yep.
So I was the last one, the last kid on the block. Unfortunately, I sort of got rolled out of home as well. With the payout that I got, I bought the Dream ship in Townsville.
Okay.
And sailed it home, and found that was then going to be my home, which wasn't actually the plan, but I ended up by living on board for 10 years. And you can see how I felt about that.
Yeah. Yes. And what was the ship's name, Mike?
That was North Star.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but as you can see, with the relationship between amateur radio and boats and all the rest of it, obviously I had a connection with what was then, or what was originally Margate Base. Yep. And then Tasman, and it's gone under several names. It's now Tas Maritime Radio.
Yep.
And I'd known Barry since my first marriage, because my first partner worked at 7HC as a control operator. Okay. So I knew Barry from way back then. So we got sort of involved with it. In the meantime, the saga goes on. We changed partners again and stuff like that, and ultimately I moved out of that one too and moved on to another boat, and that's Junee Too, which I lived on for about a year in, God knows when was that. I'll have to ask my secretary. Early in the 2000s, anyway, 2010 or something like that. And I lived on board there, and that's in one of the marinas down at Kettering.
Okay.
And that was the much reduced radio setup there, the 7,000 control head on the left.
Yep.
The back panel in the middle, which was built by you up there, Justin.
Oh, okay.
For doing broadcasts and things. And the scanner on the right, which I still use, and it mostly sits on monitoring RAD or RTC, one or the other.
Well, there you go.
It does all sorts of other things, but it's mostly just does that. And the computer and all that was under the table with the dual monitors up there. As I said, that I then went on to sort of become one of the part-time operators at Tas Maritime, and that's now the setup up on the domain for Tas Maritime Radio.
Yes. Very impressive. Now, Scott Evans, who's on our chat channel, has just said, "Oh, the evenings aboard the North Star."
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Scotty was one of the regular visitors out there. I lived on a private marina in Prince of Wales Bay for 10 years, so I got quite well known, actually. It wasn't everybody that lived on a boat.
Right. Okay.
Especially in those days.
Okay.
Now, as a result of the hot weather earlier this year and the bushfire alerts, they a couple of times closed the domain, and we weren't allowed to go up there. And by this time, we'd sort of we're down to one home operator. So I was offered the opportunity of having a remote station here for TMR. Just in case the domain got closed and they couldn't get up there.
Okay.
So there it is on the right hand side there. That's the remote system for Tas Maritime, and the control screen for it is the top screen with the pretty colours up the top there. Of course now with isolation and all the rest of it, I don't have to move from where I'm sitting right now.
Well, there you go.
I've got my amateur radio in front of me, the TMR to my right, my darling racing around, feeding me and keeping me lubricated and all the rest of it.
On your current, yes.
It's a great life.
I just had a comment from Warren there. Always good to visit Mike while waiting for the Bruni ferry. So that you must have been down at Kettering there for a little while.
That was at Kettering, yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yep, and also Murray. The first voice to come out of my first amateur radio was VK7FB on his boat in Prince of Wales Bay. So there you go.
Legends in my own lunchtime.
Oh, well and truly.
But there's the bird practice here in Alma Street in Belrive. So
okay.
You see the 6 metre beam again.
Yep.
Well, A3 element 6 metre beam with the diamond vertical up above it. There's another diamond out of shot to the left above the TV area, which so I've got 2 of those, the low gain one and the high gain one.
Okay.
2 disc cones. One of them feeds 2 scanners, and the other one feeds the third scanner. I think that's right. I'm losing count of how many scanners I've got here. And the HF area, you can sort of see the feed line. That's an inverted V configuration more or less. It's called a Western HF10. It's actually a commercial thing built by a chap in England.
Okay.
And it's only 67 feet. And covers 160 through to 6 metres and works quite well.
Wow. Okay.
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 So there you go.
Murray just put a comment in here that was on a Kenwood TM201A. So there you go. That's an early model. And Scott's saying thought Mike was about to quote the 600 cannon to the left, cannon to the right. So yes, we might leave that there. Oh, good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, I've got to figure out how to get out of this, the screen now.
Up the top, Mike.
Yeah, well, that's all very well. Hang on. No, that's not right. That's not what I meant to do at all.
Now go.
There we go. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Oh, there we go.
So now we're back.
Fantastic.
The real live me.
So
getting back to amateur radio, did you want an actual description of the junk on the desk here, or
Oh,
or have you had enough?
No, in a sec. We'll certainly have a bit of a shack tour. Who were or are your amateur radio inspirations? So you mentioned a few of them early on.
In the early days, of course, there was Ken. Well, I knew all the old ones. You know, Ken Milne, Bob O'May.
Yep.
Len Edwards. It was actually Len. It was through Len, I think, basically, that I got into the PMG. From being an electrician, I ended up in radio in the PMG because Len was one of the engineers in broadcasting, and also a very keen ham, and also was the what do you call it? It was him that started the antenna mob in Hobart.
Moonraker.
Moonraker.
Yeah.
Ken started. Len started that in his workshop in Lindisfarne.
At the service station.
Yeah, that's right. Well, in his garage first, and then the service station, and it sort of grew from there. Yeah.
Well and truly.
So he was one as well, and then from once I got on air on VHF, of course, Dave Thorne, who was a gentleman and a scholar and died way too young.
Yep.
A lovely fella. Ian Filby, I spent a lot of time with Ian, and Ian, of course, was very active on HF and VHF, and on VHF and UHF and all.
Yeah.
And especially when I was living on the boat, I spent a lot of time in Ian's shack and a lot of time in Bill 7WR's shack, and a lot of people and a lot of time in a lot of shacks.
Okay.
But I've never been a great builder. I built stuff only if I couldn't get it by some other means, if you know what I mean. I like to put all the gear together in consoles and then set it up so it didn't have wires and things going all over the place in the front of it. So
right.
I spent a lot of time building control panels and stuff to control the gear rather than actually building gear itself. I think the last real building thing would have been the HF rig that was modified to do double sidebands and all that ultimately as well.
Okay.
And I've built a few little bits and pieces here, and I've modified a few bits and pieces, but I haven't actually done a lot of building as such for quite some years now. I've been sort of too involved doing other stuff. As you can probably gather, I'm a lot keener on talking than I am on building.
That's okay. That's okay. So is there anybody in particular who sort of stands out as sort of Elmer material, I suppose you'd say, or is it a sort of a contribution of a lot of people when you
probably a contribution of a lot of people. I guess the one I spent most time with was Ian, especially when I was virtually living on my own on North Star. I used to spend a lot of time over there because of the company.
Yeah.
So I spent that, and we used to get on the air late at night. Ian and myself and one or two others. We had what we called the Never Go to Bed on the Same Day as You Got Up club, and so we'd often be talking at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we'd get that way where we'd pick up our coffee cup and start talking. Oh hell, no, that's not the microphone.
I love it.
A lot of that. And we went through a phase of doing a lot of slow scan TV and all this sort of thing.
Yep.
So also I went through quite a period, especially when I was on the road, playing with Amtor, and I loved that. I had a lot of fun with Amtor, which I think is just about a dying breed now as well.
Oh yes.
The advent of the modern computers and things have sort of revolutionised that side of amateur radio. Stuff now like FT8 and all that. I've had to dabble in most of those things. I still do a bit of FT8 and that sort of.
Yeah, it's no longer hardware based; it's all software based. So yeah. Now, Mike, Scott just put in here. HSE FB was my first on-air contact on December the 27th, 1995. So there you go. I'd say he's got that in a logbook somewhere. And also Richard and Murray and Scott have all said they knew about the never go to bed on the same day you got up club. So and Murray remembers Ziffy talking about that. So Ian talking about that. So
good time. I used to take, because Ian was involved with the Rosny Children's Choir, and a couple of times I took Ian and some of the senior members of the choir out on the boat as well. And I had scout groups on board and all sorts of other things. Through Reggie Emmett, who was involved in sailing down at the DSS through his son.
Yep.
They had the Sabo Championships here one year, so North Star became a viewing platform for the championships for a week or so. So it was a good time. I had a great. It was a sort of a mixed bag, as you can imagine, sort of between wives and stuff like that. But it was a good time too. I did a lot of things during those 10 years that you couldn't do if you were married and living in a house. Fantastic.
Well, we might go to a bit of a tour of your shack. So
okay.
So everybody take their seasick pills. Oh, now you need to switch off your background.
I'm being clever.
Sorry.
This is my production. You behave yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay.
So going left to right, obviously there's the rotator.
Yep.
For the 6 metre beam. Courtesy of Stephen R.O.
Oh, okay.
Got it from him. Again, it's been a bit modified, but because it's actually upside down, so I had to make a new scale for it because it was designed to lay flat with the dial pointing up, and that wasn't very helpful.
Yeah, okay.
Under that is, you'd be familiar with that,
the noise cancelling.
Noise cancelling doodah. Now the auxiliary antenna on that is just a sort of a lump of wire hanging outside, which also is the HF aerial for the ICOM scanner.
Right.
And I've got that set up so that when as you know, the output of the ICOM 7000, HF and 6 metres all come out the same bunghole on the back of it.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a nuisance.
Correct.
So I've got a relay in there, a Dow key coax relay that switches between the HF antenna and the 6 metre beam.
Okay.
At the same time as it does that, it switches the auxiliary aerial off the scanner and puts a short circuit across the HF input to the scanner.
Oh, very nice.
I can use the scanner to monitor when I'm doing HF rebroadcasts.
Okay.
So that's how technical I get now. I reckon that's pretty nifty.
That's very impressive.
So there's the 7000. Above that little box there has also been a little bit modified, but that's what they call a smart squelch.
Okay.
And when the ordinary AGC squelch on the 7000 is hopeless on 6 metres, it keeps on getting bursts of white noise, which upsets my wife. We all know, happy wife, happy life. So the smart squelch doesn't do anything unless it hears something that it thinks is a voice in the noise, and it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It's not only makes life a lot easier, but it's probably saved me another marriage as well.
Okay. Well, there you go. Marvellous device.
And above that is the tuning head for an ICOM IC208H.
Right.
I have one the same in the car.
Yep.
One of them came from the estate of another well-known ham, Alan Ribbon, whatever his course one was.
ZAR.
Yeah.
He was the ZAR.
The ZAR, that's him, 7 ZAR, yeah. So I can't remember which one's which now, but one of them was his.
Okay.
In fact, both of them came from deceased estates. The other one came from another chap too. now the actual transceiver of that is down under the desk. There's 2 power supplies down there, one for each of the transceivers, and the 208's actually down there as well. And the microphones for them are under the desk. That's the one for the 7000, and that's the one for the 208.
Okay. Okay.
So no wires on the desk.
Right.
Wireless keyboard and the whole bit.
Love it.
Now, so moving right along, we go along to here. The lower one there is my AC box.
Okay.
It gets really awkward when you've got umpteen things like computers and all the rest of it that all need to be switched on and switched off, and you don't want to be crawling around on the floor going to PowerPoints and stuff like that.
Right.
And I didn't have room for a big panel, and I thought, how the hell am I going to do this? So hanging out the back of that, off each switch, effectively, is a power cord.
Okay.
With a cord extension socket on the end of it.
Right.
So because there wasn't room for that many sockets on the back of the box.
Yep.
So left to right, the left-hand one is brings on the computer and also the sound system and all that. The next one along switches on the plug pack to charge my mobile phone.
Yep.
So there's an outlet under the desk with the plug pack plugged into that, and the leads down here. So that plugs into my phone, which usually sits up on top of the box here like that. And so that makes that neat and tidy.
Yep.
The next one along switches on the 208 and the 7000. The next one, it's a good question. The next one switches on the tracker scanner, which I almost never use these days. It gets very little use. But anyway, that's that one. The next switch brings on that scanner, which is normally sitting on scanning the marine channels.
Right.
Just runs a lot of the time. The next switch switches on the other 2 scanners, those 2 there.
Okay.
And you'll recognise the top one as being the one that I've had for some years on various boats.
Yes.
Good old Uniden Bearcat something or other.
Yep.
It works quite nicely. And it's nice and easy to program, unlike a lot of this modern stuff.
Okay.
And the big ICOM
receiver.
Geez, I wish I had a brain. I'd be unstoppable. R8500.
Yeah.
And that covers virtually DC to daylight, and I can hear most of you guys on 1296 on the
disco.
Disco. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So it works, and it's really handy because it's nice to be able to monitor your own transmission when you're doing stuff on HF, like the broadcast relays and things. So
Fantastic.
it gets a lot of use. Mostly it's scanning a heap of simplex and 6 metre channels.
Yep.
Around town, like the 6 metre repeaters, and it's actually scanning there at the moment.
Cool.
And it's not hearing anything because I've got the volumes turned down on all of them, because I didn't want to be interrupted.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Now, about that, of course, the dual screens for the good grief, look at that. So on the computer itself is down there, and then along behind that is a shelf there's a baby monitor there, so I can wander around outside and hear what's going on inside the house.
Okay.
On the radios and things. A little weather station there. Speakers for the computers and some of the radios. You recognise that as being the NBN box on the wall.
Yes.
So pretty close to the computers. And then we've got the TMR console there. I've got to be careful. Karen said she'd kill me if I put her on camera, so
okay.
I've got to be a bit careful here because she's just the other side of the box.
Careful. Yeah.
So I can do everything there that we can do up on the hill, but it's nowhere near as convenient.
Yeah. Okay.
The screen is not a touch screen, so it's mouse operated.
Yep.
Not that I mind, because I mostly mouse operate the one up on the hill anyway. But instead of, we've got 11 VHF stations and 4 HF stations, and they only come out of 4 speakers on these consoles, whereas up there's a speaker for everything.
Yeah.
So that does make it a little bit more complicated and a little bit more difficult to know who's coming from where. Our screen tells us which VHF base it is, but it doesn't tell us which HF base.
Okay.
It's taken me a little while to get really comfortable with operating from this. It's a different ball game altogether from operating up on the hill, and nowhere near as flash looking, of course. But because of me having my own gear here, I can sort of monitor stuff here as well.
Yeah.
Which it makes things very convenient.
Now, Mike, is that the unit that they that TMR take to, like, the Wooden Boat Festival and that sort of thing? Is that
it's similar. It's not. This is actually a brand new one, but yes, it's the same sort of thing. It's what they call their roadies box.
Yeah.
So
okay.
They've actually got several of them. So, but this is actually the latest iteration.
Okay.
It's got nice sloping panels and stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Oh no, very nice.
By the way, the VHF, marine VHF here is not fired up because I don't need it. I've got my own receivers here. So
yeah. Okay.
So, that's not actually. It hasn't got an antenna on it. Out on my tower, outside, there are 2 Yagis, a UHF one, which is the control link, and a low band Yagi that handles the audio side of things, and that links with our hub up on Mount Nelson.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. Very good. And Richard Howlett's just said, even in the old days at the DSS, so Derwent Sailing Squadron, doing comms for Melbourne to Hobart race. So there you go, some good memories there.
Yes, I actually I used to patrol for the Royal Hobart Regatta, and then because I didn't like the way they did things, I just rearranged things here a bit.
Oh, I see what you did there. Yeah. Very tricky.
Not just a pretty face. When I had my first little 18-foot boat, we used to patrol for the Royal Hobart Regatta, and the patrol boats used to just anchor and sit there and drink beer all day. They really didn't do any patrolling. It was ridiculous, and I saw a few near misses that really sort of annoyed me a bit. So I sort of wrote a long letter to the Regatta Association and said, look, this is just not good enough with speedboats roaring around at 50 or 60 knots. Somebody's going to get hurt if this job isn't done perfectly. Or if you think you can do better, you come and do it. So, because there was virtually no comms. You could call your head off and nobody would answer you from up in the regatta ground. They just didn't put any kudos into it at all. So I became a member of the Royal Hobart Regatta Association and set up a proper comm system and started actually controlling the regatta instead of the regatta controlling us.
Yeah. Okay.
And I made my patrol boats get out and patrol. And it sort of grew from that. So that was, and through that I sort of got involved in other things. I operated down at the Royal several times for the Sydney Hobart, at the DSS several times for the Melbourne Hobart. I was actually on duty down at the Royal the night the big storm hit the Sydney Hobart and all those people were drowned. That was sort of an interesting night. Yeah. Okay. When and as an adjunct to the Regatta Association, one of the guys that I worked in close harmony there with was also the volunteer skipper on the old Sydney ferry, the North Head. Okay, yeah. Which was in Hobart for some years. Yep. So I got conned into that, and I was more often than not the coxswain. It was me that used to steer the thing when it was steaming up and down the river. Okay. So yeah. There you go. Fantastic. Fantastic, Mike. Now we might open it up to questions from
anywhere, R2 talk group 3807 or on the chat channel for Mike. So send your questions or comments or otherwise in, and we'll relay them to Mike and see if we can't get some ideas from Mike around bits and pieces. So send in your comments. We'll just take a bit of a listen, Mike, and see what comes in. And VK7MO, VK7OTC, go ahead.
He's not going to talk to you, is he?
VK7 Mike Oscar, VK7OTC, go ahead, Rex.
No real questions, just to say a terrific presentation, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you very much.
Oh, very good. Thanks, thanks, Rex. Thanks for the comments and passed on, and Mike appreciates them. Cheers.
VK7RM.
Yeah, go ahead, Ron. VK7RM, VK7OTC.
Good evening, Justin. Good evening, Mike. Mike, I remember when you used to live in Bassett Street next to my grandparents. That was a long time ago. Go ahead.
Yep, but that was I was living there when I first got the full call and went on HF in the little cottage. And believe it or not, it's gone full circle. You know Mark, that's up at Town Mark Watson. Mark's daughter is now living in the same cottage. So, yeah.
It's amazing.
We were living there.
Nan lived in 221, which was on the city side of where you lived.
Okay. We were there in 1967 when the bushfires were on. There were burning embers falling all around the place. It was an exciting day.
We were 67 very well. Thanks, Mike.
Cheers, Ron. All the best. Catch you later.
Thanks, Ron. VK7RM, VK7OTC. Any further comments or questions? Okay, nothing heard. I will try DMR. Stand by. Now, this is a bit of an experiment, Mike. This is VK7 OTC. Oh, hang on. No, I'm not getting in it right at the moment. That's a bit of a. Hang on. Let me go push a few more buttons here. Ah, okay. No, not getting in. I was earlier. Oh. I bet it's because I've closed the doors. This room is, I have a feeling, is reasonably well shielded. So I'm certainly receiving 3809. I don't know whether Scott, you can call in on 3807 and 3807 and see whether I can receive it or not. It's not getting in. Anyway, and there's a bit on the chat. Okay, Hayden, VK7HH, Ham Radio DX. I'm sure I have plenty of things to show off in the shack at Scott Evans, so there's maybe a bit of a hint for the next one. And Warren, remember that that bad storm during the Sydney Hobart in 1998. That was, I think. My wedding was on board the Cartilla out over the river on Boxing Day, and I think Alan VK7KAJ was there too. So there you go. And Reg Emmett, hello Reg, VK7KK. Very interesting memories. So thanks Reg. And On
Reg and his brother. My first logbook is just full of Reg and Wilf. ZAO, 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 ZAQ, ZAQ, ZAO.
Oh, that what they would have been VHF, UHF sort of contacts, or
yeah, mostly 2 metres in those days.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and it would have been 2 metres AM.
AM as well.
AM. Yeah. And I can hear you, Scott. I've just gone to low power, but I'm not triggering the repeater for some reason. And I was earlier. I have a feeling it might be because I've closed the doors. So I'll try that in a short while. I can certainly hear you. So if you'd like to call in on 3807 with a question or a comment, feel free, because I can actually hear you. Richard of ZBX, great stuff indeed. A very interesting story with some great memories, heaps of experience in the hobby. Right there, so there you go. I love it. Good stuff. So final call for any last comments or questions, and anything you'd like to finish off with, Mike. Go ahead.
I think thank you for the opportunity of allowing me to skate, and yeah, I mean one can go on for hours when you start reminiscing about the good old days, and but it sort of reminds, every time I sort of talk about these sort of things, it reminds me of how many of the good old boys are no longer around. I mean, almost all of the blokes that I knew so well are now gone. You know, especially like people like Ken Milne and Joe Brown and Bob O'May and Jack Batchelor and Charlie Spiegel. They were all well-known hams around town back in those days. Snowy Harrison, so many of them that are all gone now, and it sort of it gets a bit of a worry after a while.
Yeah, many of those names, Mike, are on the WIA honour roll up here.
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they were the WIA in those days.
So just Anyway, okay. Thank you very much. Fantastic. Thank you. A huge thank you, Mike, and especially for sharing those photos. Some of those photos are priceless. They're fantastic. So thank you very much for sharing them. And also a big thank you to Karen as well for allowing us to actually do this, to enter into your dining room. So a big thank you to Karen. And Reg has just commented, and we were just the VHF group. Yes, okay. So there you go. Good stuff. So thank you very much, Mike. And you're welcome to stay on online if you would like to. We've just got a little bit to finish off with, and then we'll go to the videos, and then we can close everything down. So you're welcome to stay there for a short while, and we'll just go to I just thought I'd finish off. There is some very, very funny stuff that is going around, obviously for those people who are in isolation around the world, but especially in the amateur radio world. There is, of course, we've been for well over 100 years practicing self-isolation in our shacks, and so we're well practiced in this particular area. But there was a wonderful little from K9RN, the new Q codes that somebody has very smartly come up with, and I'll zoom out here a little bit here we go. The temporary ham radio Q codes for our times, which is things like QLD, which is I am locked down, QUA, I am quarantined, QPD, I'm in the middle of a pandemic, QTP, I have toilet paper, would you like to trade for a new car? QFC, I am flattening the curve. QHG, I need a hug. QSH, I am sheltering in place. QHS, this is particularly good, I have hand sanitizer, would you like to trade 2 new cars? QSD, I'm observing social distancing. And QCV, I hate coronavirus. So I thought that was particularly good. But anyway, there is some very smart stuff coming out. So just a reminder, we're continuing these shack nights for all the Wednesday nights except the very first Wednesday night. The very first Wednesday night, and this one coming up, which is on the 6th of May, we will have, and huge thank you to Scott VK7HSE, who is going to be giving us an update and a presentation of online. So we'll have a virtual club meeting like we had last week, with a presenter as Scott VK7HSE, who's giving us an update on DMR. So that's our first virtual club meeting with presentation on the 6th of May. So if and the in-between Wednesday nights we'll continue with the DATV experimenters nights and the shack tours. Now you would have received Reese members would have received the email around the Wednesday afternoon group who are meeting via Zoom on a Wednesday afternoon at the same sort of times as when they would normally meet up here. So that was something that came out of the night, the last Wednesday night. So we've set that up. So if you're interested in being involved with and doing a shack tour, much like what Mike did, then please get in contact with me, VK7 Tango Whiskey at wia.org.au. Our videos for tonight for our RF audience is mentioned from our sponsor there. Videos for tonight, Amateur Logic episode 142, which is do you really know what's in your Spectrum display, which is and a bit about DRM and SSTV exploration. So that's and then a review of the Saigu X5105, which is a 160 to 6 metre portable rig, a bit of a competition to the IC705. Ham radio crash course, and then we've got a couple of those, what ham radio should I buy and how to start out in ham radio, with the guy from Ham Radio Crash Course. So they're our videos for our RF audience. So we'll get underway with our videos. Thank you for watching, viewing, commenting, and a special big thank you to Mike VK7FB for being on Zoom for us, so we'll bid you 73, and we'll catch you next time. This is VK7 OTC now going clear. 73. Have a great week and stay safe.